ask Dr. Ramachandran the next question. Whenever we are talking about actually empowering cities or finding the money to do it, or even the part about the public-private public-private partnerships, which is our next panel, how do you actually, what do you see the future of, the way partnerships are going to evolve, or they should evolve, to take care of the risk and the revenue sharing?
When the center talks to the states about projects, programs, and what needs to be done, I do hope the center will also emphasize this point about all the states having a relook at the cadres. For those who are not very familiar with the structure, day in and day out, I was at least handling these issues. We expect the local body to do wonders. But we must recognize the local body has the same complement of staff. And there used to be a time when there used to be a large number of conservancy staff and much less as far as the technical staff is concerned. So these are days of PPPs, further revenue generation, digital agenda, e-governance, enabling the citizens, better water management, better disposal of waste and things like that. So you have to have specialization which is just not there. We have not paid attention to that subject. So coming back to your point, that's why the PPPs were talked about in the mission reform agenda. And each state was supposed to form a PPP policy, and cities were to be empowered to take up projects on their own. But ultimately what has happened is when governments change, either the state governments change or the local body complexion changes. So one looks at why did this PPP happen? So we need to look into it, whether something has gone wrong. And the new regime sort of puts a halt to what has been taken up under PPP. This scenario has to change. And that will also be part of the smartness agenda. I mean, we have to be smart in the sense that we have to think in terms of moving forward and being as transparent as possible. So when there is no transparency, probably these doubts keep coming as to why did this happen. Look at the coal auctions. It used to happen, it is happening. But I haven't heard any complaint about the process which has been gone through. So if it is known to people, I think it makes a big difference. So PPPs will have prominence in the scheme of things. Of course, with the fourth P added, which the minister has been talking about, and that's critical because there is no point taking up a PPP where the people don't know what is it. I mean, whether it is 24/7 water supply or a new waste management arrangement where people are not involved. But it's a difficult task to involve the fourth P. We have to have structures and mechanisms for that. In that, the stakeholder participation, how we look at participating in the city governance process also comes in. It's not just the local body or the state government. So that's one point I'm sure you would like to take up, awareness creation and preparing people to be participants in the process. Just to cite one more example, when the city development plans were prepared under the Jawaharlal Nehru mission, it was supposed to happen with stakeholder participation. That's the CDP is prepared and then people were supposed to contribute to that process. Local bodies would say with their limited capacity, it's there, you go to such and such site, access it and send your comments. I mean, our people are not prepared to do that. I mean, most of the larger sections of people who have to earn a living, they get out in the morning, come back in the night, and they may not have access to the types of technologies which we all carry with us. So we have to take that aspect also into account, and I'm sure you would highlight this point also, how to make people participate in that process. So if private partners have to come in, one, the transparency, the keen participation of the local body in planning the entire process. I mean, there are instances where the local body leaders said that we didn't know what project was being taken up. The commissioner brought some proposal before us, we approved it. That cannot continue. So there again, smartness will have to come. So encouraging people to participate, and for that, some sort of a state level policy would be a must, because otherwise, a state government of a particular complexion, local body of another complexion, they will have constant problems. Also, anything and everything cannot be approved at the local body level today. There would be very many references required to the state level. So the states have to fine-tune the public-private people participation policy. And these are all times when they keep talking about and asking questions. I think they can make these efforts to structure something, table it for discussion among public. People can give their feedback. Those who have participated in the PPP projects can give their feedback. There are any number of them, but they won't speak out because there is a problem if they speak out. Thank you.
No, thank you, Dr. Ramachandran. In fact, before I come back to Vaibhav, I'd just like to bring in Mr. Murthy here. I mean, would you like to perhaps talk a little bit about the skill and the capacity gap that exists? Because, you know, it's easy to make plans. It's easy, suppose we even manage the money. Suppose we even manage to get just that right mix that, you know, says, okay, this is what we have to do. Do we have the capacity for it? Do we have people who are actually empowered, skilled enough to really take it to the next level? I mean,
the answer is yes. There is sufficient manpower which is available to be skilled on various aspects of municipal corporation operations. But the question is, do we have specialized skills available to do the project planning and starting of that activity? We will create a huge manpower for operations and maintenance, but do we have that team or that capacity which can do the planning and the project build phase part of it? That's what is the challenge. So today we are not having the challenge of skilling, say, about 100,000 people and then putting them in multiple cities on maintaining roads, maintaining infrastructure, doing plant operation, maintenance and all those things. That can be taught, but where we lack is institutional capacity breakdown or a gap in which we do not have those streams of water people, sewage, sanitation, health workers. So even the smallest of the thing, health worker, education, we don't have that capacities and that capacity cannot be done by the skill development. We do whatever we want to do. That capacity cannot be done by a skill development. For me, a definition of skill development is a person from age of 14 plus when he can actually get job, 15 years plus, till a kind of a 10th plus, 12th plus kind of an education. I'm not talking about a graduate and above, but I'm looking at that kind of a, so skill development is particularly targeted towards that region. But I'm looking particularly towards technical capacity. And answer is yes to O&M phase of it. Can we create capacity? On the project planning, building, construct, that's where we need the partnerships and people to come in and support us.
But I guess the time has come when all of us have to be a little more forward-looking, enthusiastic, solution-oriented, participate in the governance process, even if the government corridors don't allow everybody to participate. I think it's important to storm in there and then, work with them, and because working around the system is very important. Sometimes innovation has done fantastic things to communities around the world, and I think India also, there's several ideas that are buried in the backyards of good communities. We will have to really comb the country, cull them out, and infuse life into them, allow them to scale. There's an opportunity. I think a time has come. I don't know. I wish it's important to really start looking very optimistic as of now, so that we will add a lot of let's say our positive thoughts into the entire game plan.
I thought I'll quickly get everyone's thoughts in on what kind of role do you see. I know it's a very, very generic question because we won't even be able to touch the tip of the iceberg here, but what kind of role do you see technology playing specifically in the entire smart cities vision? Okay,
so without any doubt, technology is the disrupting force for smart city development. Okay, let me give an example to you. And this is something which every city needs to plan it out. They need to see if I'm actually performing an activity, for example, doing a water distribution across the city. And if I continue to do it for next 20 years in the same fashion, where do I reach? How many people I would be able to service? What is the kind of efficiencies I'll bring into the system on my own without actually putting anything else inside it? Then let's put the next layer on top of it, which is if I actually take out a part of it and transform it through technology or through a private party participation. Technology need not be a private party participation into the process. It is a government can move the entire operation. For example, the complaint grievance system of a water distribution system, which is physical, it moves to a digital kind of a mode, and then your response time decreases. So that's government itself trying to do that. Whereas if you actually, so that's how will you actually improve that service level? That improves that. It's the technology ingredient. How do I actually, if I put privatization or a private operator to it, how much I create the service level benchmark, can I actually bring down further and achieve much better efficiencies? That's the next level there. So cities needs to create those models And then only when they see that the benefit which is coming, and I'm again coming back to my first point, cities and city operators municipal corporation needs to forget about the land as an asset and start thinking, how do I utilize the other pieces, which is citizen participation, technology, and the private operators, without thinking land as an asset. Okay, so if these three are modeled together, how much efficiency I can bring into the system, which will help you look at the new models. That's what I think is the right way, and technology in that will play a heavy role for both the private operator, because private operator will come with the technology inbuilt into its own systems, and the government can also include technology as part of its overall service delivery.
Thank you. Chaudhary, would you like to say something here?
Sure. I believe smart cities for the first time, the minute you introduce things like technology, the first thing, and you know, I'm sorry to say here, I have an urban design background, so I'm a little biased. This is for the first time when we will see a lot of departments within the government to be forced to work with, you know, the urban designers who are part of the urban development body, wherein they will have to put in thoughts, discuss, thrash out things even before they actually start doing something on ground. This will be the first time when technology will enable various departments, you know, to work together in tandem. They will be forced to think together. It will no longer be those days when, you know, there's a beautiful road which is laid out, you know, and then there's a beautification going on the side, and 3 days after that you realize, oh, the telecom department has decided to dig the road. You know, all this would be done at tandem together to create a city which, you know, you would, you know, coming back again to the line, which will be the highest living standard for a citizen.
Thanks. Dr. Ramachandran, your thoughts on this before we open the floor for questions?
Yeah, before that, if you permit, I just want to go back to 2 points or the 2 areas covered earlier. The first is the capacity skills part which you referred to. What would also be critical is contract management, contractor management, and the contractor staff management. If I could mention an example, Delhi Metro is a good example where, I mean, there have been some unfortunate accidents, but Delhi Metro focuses on insisting on the contractors, training their people, and sensitizing them about the various requirements. That's important when you work in public spaces. So I think that's also a culture which has to come about as far as our contractors are concerned. It may be too much to expect, but we have to have that happen so that quality standards, these all come about. And that will take me to the second point about the space part. The space, I think, would, the issue here would be, what do we opt for, horizontal expansion or vertical expansion? All those who come with the multilaterals and all, they keep asking, why do you have only single story structures in Lutyens Delhi? Lutyens Delhi is an exception, but even remaining part of it, why can't you have 20, 40, 60 story structures? Are we ready for it? And of course, it gets linked with the classic issue of whether the infrastructure is there or not. But infrastructure also could be possible. So it's a question of how best we plan to make these things happen. And there probably technology could play a role. But as far as technology is concerned, what I say may not be music to that segment of people who look forward to huge opportunities in the smart city business, if I may put it like that. So my only hope is it's not a technology or technologist-driven agenda, because we are dealing with a cross-section of people. As I always say, for people like us, leveraging technology is one way of doing things. But we have to think of the large number of those sections of people, either who are living in slums, who are daily wages, and people like that. To what extent can they leverage access technology and take advantage of that? So the smart city planning process is going to be complex to that extent. And though what you say should happen ultimately and as easily as possible, but the beauty of it or the complexity of it would be addressing this requirement in a country like ours, where we have these varying requirements, and everyone probably cannot also afford that high end of technology if it is suddenly imposed. So that's the balance we'll have to bring in this whole scheme of things. That's where coming out with a smart city document would be very critical, because it should not be dovetailed towards providing to the requirements of certain sections who would provide the technology, and after 3 years you again look for money to update it and you know, make it in sync with what is the current requirement. So we'll have to be a little careful. I'm not saying that we should be very pessimistic about that, but that's going to be a difficult task. And when we talk about capacities and things like that, ultimately what will happen is, since the city does not have these type of specialists, they'll engage a consultant, pardon my saying. So the consultant will produce a document which will be made available. And as I said, in a city corporation meeting or so, since they cannot go into the entire gamut of these things, it will get approved because we have to go to the center for getting that money and project allocation. There is a little bit of an issue here. So if you have learned certain lessons from implementation of our mission so far, how best we can reorient ourselves to these requirements which are somewhat complex. And as you say, those who are educated people in the city, can they come in and contribute to this process without looking for a consultancy, if I may put it like that? Can the citizens, the enlightened citizens, contribute to that process? That becomes critical. But then the final question would be, does our system provide that type of a platform? I always keep referring to this, where enlightened citizens can participate and contribute to the process.
I think I'd just like to say one thing to what you said. I think we should rely on the ingenuity of Indians, you know, where people are talking about smartphones and, you know, all of that. In India, we have the missed call. You know, people tell me, you know, you could have the smartest phone, you could have it, but Indians use the missed call to great advantage, you know. With a 10 rupee recharge, you can actually reach out to like about 100 people in a day if you want. So I think we should count on the ingenuity of Indians here. So I'd like to thank all my panelists. Thank you so much. And if nothing else, I don't know about what will happen in the next 1 year. You've given me enough fodder for my next issue. So that helps. Thank you so much.